Welcome to the Randy Karraker Show on STL Sports Central. We are presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. Matthew Rocchio, Randy Karraker, Bernie Miklasz coming up later in the show, and we're going to get to the Cardinals, but we do want to start because I know you guys like to talk about broadcasters, right? And John Kelly getting fired by the Blues and FanDuel, and a shakeup there. I think, Matthew, I'll let you speak for yourself. But first, I want to start with this. I want to start the show by congratulating Chris Kerber and Joe Vitale. I think they'll do really good work. They're both great broadcasters and both great friends. Love them both. Yep. But I've known John Kelly for about half my life. And he is a fellow Parkway North grad. He's a great, great hockey broadcaster. And we were talking before we came on, if you're in your 20s, Matthew's in his early 30s, you don't remember Blues hockey without John Kelly on TV. And John Kelly has been a member of a lot of households for 82 nights a year for a long, long time, 70 nights a year. And it's just, I get the business part of it, Matthew. I can see the business side of it. Yep. But I think sometimes if I were in charge, I would look at the P&L and I would say, you know what, the emotion of this and what it's going to do to our franchise and the history of our franchise and the way people think of us, that is going to outweigh the dollars and cents. I truly think that there's a lack of understanding about the importance of the emotional tie that sports fans have to the broadcasters of those teams.
Yeah, and because that's why they spend the money they do. And I think too often now we try to treat sports like a regular business when it isn't a regular business, because you're not just selling the product based on quality and need. It's not just simply regular economic supply and demand. And then is your quality good enough? Are you beating somebody out in the market? There's an emotional side of things that you're always tapping into. And when sports teams neglect to admit that in their decision-making process, it will always and forever annoy me, because fans will always spend money that is irrational if you looked at it in another business way, because your team is probably can be bad some years. You're not giving above average quality, and yet teams still pay above average prices for your product. And we see that all over sports. It happens across every market. And so because of that, sports are not just a straight business, but we like to have these moments where they are a straight business. And that's my least favorite thing about sports, is that we pick and choose when it's one thing and when it's another. And that's the case right now.
And JK, well, I think the best way I can say this, and if you know, you know, but the St. Louis Blues fired a broadcaster named Kelly. Whew, think about that for a second.
Sounds odd.
Yeah, the St. Louis Blues fired a broadcaster named Kelly. They didn't fire a broadcaster named Karraker. They didn't fire a broadcaster named Rocchio. They didn't fire a broadcaster named Wilson, and one had left before. But they fired a broadcaster named Kelly. The Dan Kelly press box is up there. You've got a guy that not only for the last 20 years, but had another 6 or 7 year stint before that, before he left to do the Tampa Bay Lightning for 3 years, and then the Avalanche, I believe, he did the Avalanche for 10. So, and by the way, John, I'm convinced, will land on his feet. If John Kelly is hired today by ESPN, he'll be their number one hockey broadcaster. He'll be the best that they have. And we've been fired. We're in the business. We get it, but it is disappointing. Matthew and I are always going to come down on the side of we want broadcasters to be employed, but on a bigger scale for you, I just think that there is a lack of understanding. And it's funny that we were talking about this with the Cardinals yesterday, and we talked about it with the Rams too. Just a lack of understanding as to how important emotion is when you're trying to get people to spend money on your product. You develop an emotional investment to make a financial investment. And part of the emotional investment that you have with a team is with its broadcaster.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, as you opened it up, the crazy part about this is knowing every single person in this story personally. Definitely makes it different as you read it and things like that. And obviously, you know, Joey's one of my favorite people. Curbs, I love talking about him. Honestly, talking about him with the New York Giants is one of my favorite things in the world. To talk about somebody in a specific team is talking about Curbs with the Giants because of the way he reacts. But I also have had the pleasure of getting to work with not just John Kelly, but also his son, Patrick.
Mhm.
Patrick also was with the Ambush before I was there, and he's given me a lot of help of kind of with the indoor soccer game. And so I'm a huge fan of the Kelly family, both John and Patrick and the entire family. And so obviously I hope to hear more John Kelly broadcast, because like you said, consummate professional, incredible broadcaster, but it just kind of rankles everybody's nose, and it should. And Jeremy Rutherford put out a tweet, and I thought his perspective of this coming right after they announced the jersey change, and part of their messaging being about the tradition of the Blues and connecting the years through the tradition, and then to make this move right afterwards, it does make some of those things ring a little hollow.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but it's the business. It's an interesting thing too, because I have been let go. Well, I'll take you through. I got let go by KMOX in 1996, but they brought me back in a month. I was a budget cut. Somebody left. They brought me back. I got a hell of a deal to come back, by the way. Then I left to do charter. I left KMOX to do charter, and then at the same time, I did KTRS. The Cardinals buy and this is the only time we got fired where it wasn't a budget cut. The Cardinals buy KTRS, and they tell me that I just don't fit with St. Louis and Cardinal baseball.
That's hilarious in retrospect. Oh my God.
So the guy it was a program director named Al Brady Law.
Oh man.
And he made his name because he programmed WABC in New York to play disco music in 1977. I was 15 in 1977, and I could have programmed WABC in New York to play disco music and been a legend too. So anyway, but McGraw-Milhaven, my buddy, calls me when Al Brady Law dies. He'd been fired, and then he died. And McGraw called me and said, "Hey, did you hear Al Brady Law died?" And I said, "No, but good riddance." But then I was Bernie and I did a show, and this is one of my favorite things in radio. Bernie, did you ever get a little walkie-talkie for Christmas or something like
Oh God, yeah, because I was a Boy Scout, and I think there's 2 different times in my life where I got walkie-talkies as presents, and we went absolutely crazy both times.
Yeah, so our general manager here, Dave Green, was the general manager at 1380. And 1380 was basically like having those walkie-talkies that you got for Christmas. You couldn't hear the station past Clayton Road. And I got cut in a budget cut there, and then obviously 101 got whacked in a budget cut there. So I understand that it's business, but it still hurts. And it's families. It's, John's wife, Jennifer, and his kids, they all feel this, and we feel for John today. But at the same time, we know that it's a business. And, hey, Curbs would prefer to have John Kelly and Jamie Rivers doing TV and Curbs and Joey doing radio, but that's just not the way the business works. And sometimes you've had FanDuel broadcasting in bankruptcy. We know that the difficulties that 101 is dealing with firsthand. So I get it. I get it. I just don't like the business part of it.
And for me, I'm obviously bummed for Jamie, who I would have these long talks with while he was preparing his whiteboard segments.
Mm-hmm.
And Jamie Rivers' whiteboard segments might be the single thing on this planet that has taught me the most about hockey in a quick amount of time. And so I hope now that he still gets to do that kind of stuff, obviously with the pre and the post game. But there's also a factor where I love the radio broadcast of Curbs and Joey so much that I am a little bit worried that they're not going to be put in a position to succeed with the simulcast, because TV and radio are just so different, and you have to default towards the radio side of things, because you can't just let huge moments of silence play out on the radio where they don't have the visuals to fill it in. So you essentially have to do the radio broadcast for as the simulcast. And I think there's a lot of people who have a set way that TV broadcasts are supposed to go, and they're not going to like the radio broadcast being on TV. And that's nothing to say about the quality of the broadcast or anything like that. It's just like the mindset we have about the difference. It just bums me out that we're not going to get the highest quality, when last year, over the last few years, we've had 2 incredibly high quality broadcasts.
And to the point, we'll take you behind the curtain here, but you already know this, but might not have thought about it. On TV, there's a stoppage in play. Blues have Nurses Night coming up April 15th at Enterprise Center. Get your tickets now by going to calling 622-BLUE. Or the Blues have Louis' birthday party coming up. All of these different promos that you have on TV that you don't necessarily have on radio, where Joey and Curbs can talk about Randy's carrot cake and stuff like that and have silly and fun conversations. You can't do that on TV now.
No, you can't be hiding any crickets.
No.
unfortunately, on the TV broadcast, and that's a bummer. You lose a little bit of that edge of the personality. Now, if there's anybody who still will always be able to bring an edge of personality to a broadcast, no matter what format it is Curbs and Joey. So that's that. If you're going to try this experiment with anybody, two good people to try it with. But to your point, I'm bummed about the overall experiment happening in the first place.
Yeah, we are, and let's see. The quality of the TV broadcast for the Blues has been going downhill. They needed. I disagree with IROX 11.
Fantastic. It was fantastic. You getting Bernie in the studio at every game was an absolute blast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's one of the reasons I would watch the game, is because I thought the presentation overall with Jamie, with Bernie, with Alexa, and again our shout to Alexa, who is one of my favorite people in this market, because we were talking with B. Schaefer earlier. Brendan Schaefer is I called it little jabs, and we all agreed Brendan Schaefer's good at little prison shanks.
Mm-hmm.
He'll get you, but it means he likes you. And I love Alexa because she, more so than almost anybody else in this market, she'll go back and forth with you. Mm-hmm. and battle, and I love that in somebody. Obviously, I'm a combative, argumentative person. We know that, and so her not getting renewed also was a huge bummer. So I hopefully we see she continues to get more work in addition to the Cardinal stuff, because I think Alexa's fantastic.
Yeah, she's really good. Jay Renegade, I'm hungry. Okay, we'll give you your dose of Cardinals. And Hockey Dad Don, he had Hockey Dad Don is one of our favorites, and he says, I was born in '82. Ken Wilson in his baby, and now I have to suffer through this. And I'm sure that everybody appreciates your feelings. He also said, I'm still dead inside from losing Darren Pang. So that's the sort of emotional attachment that we're talking about. Okay, let's get back to the Cardinals, who won 8-1 last night over the Nationals. Better have. And Miles Miklasz, I mean, it was just a couple of days ago. Everybody wanted to get rid of Miles Miklasz. Now he goes 5 2/3 scoreless. So because Miles Miklasz had a good start yesterday, doesn't mean anything to me. He will be back to pitching bad again. Mark my words. Yeah, that's what number 5 starters do. They give you innings, and sometimes they're going to give you innings that are worthwhile. Sometimes they're going to give you innings that aren't great, but they're going to give you innings. Just remember, you aren't talking about Max Scherzer in his prime here. You aren't talking about Jack Flaherty in his prime here. You're talking about Miles Miklasz, who is at this stage of his career is charged with providing innings to protect the bullpen. And hopefully you do get some events like last night where he pitched very well, 5 2/3 without allowing a run, 2 hits. He walked 1 and struck out 6, set down 13 in a row at one point.
Yeah, it's just I love Miles Miklasz for the pure comedy he creates, because there's nothing funnier. Like a 6 home run game would not have been funnier. Like that would have been tragic. It would have been depressing. But him going out there and absolutely shoving, hilarity, like the height of baseball humor. That Miles Miklasz follows up a 6 home run start with that, and everyone wants his head, and we all kind of agree, just because of how the numbers work, that if you're getting anybody's head on a platter this week, it would have been Fedde's. More on that in a moment. And everyone was mad about that, and then he goes out there and absolutely shoves through 5 2/3. The most hilarious possible aspect in any way, shape, and form. Miles has the comedic timing and the mustache of a genius.
Yeah. He had to have been tipping pitches and figured it out in Chicago, right? He said he figured something out. He had to have been tipping pitches. Nobody in the Cardinal dugout saw it. And once he figured out what he was doing wrong in terms of tipping the pitches, he wound up pitching well towards the end in the Chicago start, and obviously last night. And then last night, you have an offense that scores 8 runs, 7 different players with RBIs. Only Alec Burleson had 2 RBIs. So up and down the lineup, and this is obviously missing a couple of your key guys, the Cardinals did pretty well.
Brady Schoenthal, wonder what you all think. Not just saying this because his good start last night. I'd rather have him over Fedde. And Brady, that's you're locked into the Cardinals' wavelengths right now, because that was, I think, the crystallized moment that came out very quickly after Sunday was, if they do pull the trigger on anyone, we all expected it to be pulling the trigger on Fedde, because clearly they didn't have a lot of faith in his ability to eat innings, and that's what matters. Because then we got into the organizational depth problem, and it's interesting to me how this conversation really has developed over the last few days. Because then we got into the organizational depth problem. We all agreed you can't pull the trigger on both Fedde or Miklasz, and it's probably going to be Fedde based on how the Cardinals are handling things. Then things kind of continue to progress, and then yesterday we get the fact that Fedde will be making his regular start in the rotation. And that, I think, deserves a very different reaction than the Miklasz, because clearly Miklasz has this. I thought this was a great stat that Mason Window put out. Miklasz has 4 starts with 0 allowed runs. Only Gray has more for the Cardinals with 6. I think it's clear, to Brady's point, that they had a lot more faith in Miklasz than Fedde going forward. And now we know that the only reason Fedde's getting this start is because of a very short timetable decision-making process.
So that they can hopefully get some team to, so that you can move Eric Fedde on.
And much like a fish, you wonder, why is anyone dumb enough to do this?
Right. Yeah.
Much like a fish, you're like, how are you stupid enough to bite?
Cardinals did last year.
Well, he was pitching better than that this last year.
That's true. Okay, I got to, and we'll get back to baseball, but I didn't even realize this. The Blues put out a tweet, a thank you for 20 years of memorable calls during some of the biggest moments in our history. Thank you, Janko. Why do you do that after you fire a guy?
Because it seems like the right thing to do.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because they should give him his flowers after an unceremonious axing. But do you think you need a little? You want some gap?
Let it breathe.
Let it breathe a little bit.
Yeah,
that's fair. I think that's very fair. By the way, somebody asked. Joe Turner was asking about what happens to Bernie. Bernie's still going to be doing work inside the studio.
Yeah, he'll. So Bernie and Jamie Rivers and Chris Pronger is also going to be doing a lot more pre and post. So that'll be good.
The addition of Pronger was interesting. I like that.
Yeah. The Cardinals are going to take on the Braves this weekend. Here we are. We're going to have 65 games left after this weekend. At the moment, the Cardinals are a game out of the wild card. I want you, and if you are bitter about where the Cardinals are, I want to get your honest reaction to where the Cardinals are right now, because if you would have told me, Matthew, at the beginning of the season, when the Cardinals played the Twins before game 1, if you would have said, hey, we're going to get to the All-Star break and the Cardinals are only going to be 1 game out of a playoff spot, I would have said, A, you're crazy, but B, I'm going to be very happy about that. If somebody would have offered that to me, said, guaranteed, it doesn't matter how you get there, you're going to be 1 game out at the All-Star break, I would have taken it.
Yeah, I think every Cardinals fan would have. And if you then explain to them exactly how you got here, I also think you get even more affirmative answers, because while you being honest about the struggles of Jordan Walker, if you were talking about Matthew Liberatore is now getting to a point where you might have won the trade. Nolan Gorman's hitting again. Ivan Herrera has been one of your best hitters this entire season. Wilson Contreras is playing great first base and hitting the ball. Brendan Donovan is hitting over 300 and is an all-star. If you explained all those little permutations, Sonny Gray's been fantastic and has still been healthy all year. Like, you explained all those permutations in addition to the record, I don't know how many Cardinals fans aren't saying, I'm taking everything there, every good thing you just said. I'm even taking it with the fact that Walker's struggling.
I'm with you. Eric Cleveland, I think if you can get the rotation some help and right-handed bat, Herrera, or a trade, they can hang in there. And that's my thought is, and really, you have to go a month and a half now. You have to go 6 weeks, and the schedule is not overwhelming. But to be in the race in September, and for a team like this, I think that's all we can reasonably ask for. If the Cardinals can hang in there and be in the playoff hunt in September, I think that'll be a huge positive. I don't know if it's going to enhance attendance, but I think for this ball club and what they're trying to accomplish in 25, I think it'll be monstrous, because we know that they didn't expect to win. They're ahead of schedule. And if they can accelerate the schedule a little bit more and get some pitchers up here, that'd be great. By the way, Tekoa Roby last night, 6 strikeouts, 5 2/3. He didn't allow a run for Memphis against Charlotte. And he looks to be finally healthy and finally on his way. And maybe you do have another guy, and maybe Matthews has been walking a lot of people. I kind of think Matthews might be pitching hurt, but maybe there are more guys than just Michael McGreevy.
You think so?
I think Roby, man, I was watching last night. Roby's got great stuff. And we don't know if he'll be able to stay healthy. He just hasn't pitched enough games in his career to know whether or not he can stay healthy. But if Tekoa Roby is able to give you 28 starts with the stuff he has, I think that he'll be a really good major league starter. I don't know if he'll be a number 1, maybe, but I think he'll be really good.
So he was killing it with Springfield, and then he got moved up to Memphis and immediately struggled in his first two starts in Memphis. He gave up 6 earned runs in each of those starts. In the second one, he gave up 3 home runs in addition to those 6 earned runs. But since then, in his last 4 starts for Memphis, including last night, he has gone 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, no earned runs, 5 innings pitched, 4 hits allowed, 1 earned run, 4 1/3, 5 hits, 4 runs, but only 1 of those was earned. And 5 2/3, 6 hits, 0 runs allowed, to your point. And almost all those games, we're looking at 6 to 1 strikeout to walk ratio for a lot of those games too. So he really is starting to find his form at Memphis. And if he continues that up for another month or so, he definitely puts himself, I think, in a September position.
I would think so. Jerry Franks, if the Cardinals were built to win the division but are clinging to a spot due to injuries is one thing, but a team that is built to win 83 games that is barely hanging on is not something to be happy about. But you're talking about 2 separate things. You aren't throwing in the fact that this team was built, it's a very young team, one of the youngest teams in Major League Baseball, that was built to grow. This team was built with an upward trajectory. If a team is young and getting better and gives you something to look forward to, I look at that as a positive. I understand that you may want to have the Dodgers roster. That's not reality right now. And this group of players, they aren't in their prime yet. They aren't in that 27 or let's even say 26 to 31 year range. You've got a couple of guys in there, but not an awful lot that are in their prime. When this group is in their prime, they're going to be pretty good. And so I think that's the one part of your comment that was left out, is that this is a young team, yes, that came in without expectations, but also came in with a belief that they were going to go on a runway with an upward trajectory.
And I think that's why Jerry Franks, we're going to say, and for the past several years, Mo has built teams to limp into the extra wild card spot and hope something happens in the playoffs. I don't disagree with you, but I just think your tone, you can say that with a tone that sounds super negative, but I think the Cardinals would almost use some similar words and just be like, we're building teams based on the roster, the talent we have available right now at the major league level to get into the tournament and try to win something in a month and a half period, because you can get hot and you can win these things. I think they would agree with that's their goal, because they haven't had the young players develop to the point where they're going to be able to take that next step, especially the young pitchers. How are you going to win games in the playoffs without a middle of the order bat, with Arenado and Goldschmidt getting older and regressing a little bit? You don't have that. So I feel like this is what we keep having the conversation about, is the people who are okay with just getting in, and the people who say, I don't want to compete unless I'm competing for the World Series as a top team in the league.
And I get that. But the reality is this team is not going to compete, and this organization is not able, because of their revenues. Their revenues are about less than a third of what the Dodgers revenues are, less than half of what the Yankees revenues are. Because of their revenue limitations, this is the way they have to go about it. They have no choice. And I look at it like this. When is the last time you remember the Cardinals giving multiple players an opportunity to deal with adversity and get better? It didn't happen under Tony La Russa.
No.
You don't remember J.D. Drew being able to play 100 games out of 110. Well, he was hurt. But you don't remember a guy like Rasmus getting that opportunity. You don't remember some of the young infielders like Luis Ordaz getting that opportunity on a regular basis. Albert didn't deal with adversity right off the bat. Yachty was a stud defensively right off the bat. There were very few players under La Russa that got the opportunity. Under Mike Matheny, the players all said one of the things that bothered them the most is they could go on a 3-game hitting streak and then go 0 for 3 and they'd be looking over their shoulder. Randall Grichuk said that that's what happened. Piscotty said that that's what happened to him. Wonger said that was what happened to him, because the expectation was, okay, we need this young player to perform now. If he doesn't, we're going to get a veteran to replace him. So finally, after a long time, the Cardinals are willing to take a step back to try to let their young players improve. And they understand that with the economics of the sport now, they can't go out and get those guys like they used to. If the Cardinals wanted to get the equivalent this offseason of Matheny, Vigna, Renteria, Darryl Kyle, Jim Edmonds, Pat Hennigan, Andy Bennis.
Jesus.
It cost. They got those guys in one off season one time.
Wow.
If you wanted to get that group
That's insane.
this off season, that is, you're talking probably $200 million for each of those. Well, not each.
At least.
Vina and Matheny wouldn't make that much, but Renteria, that trade and an extension would cost that much. Jimmy Edmonds, that'd be $200 million if you gave him that contract. Kyle, you're talking about $200 million. Yeah. Hengen, you're probably talking 150. Andy Bennis, you're talking in between those two areas. Plus, they got a closure that year in Dave Veers. So if you wanted to do that, you're spending well north of $1 billion in one off season. And that's just not doable for the Cardinals anymore.
Yeah, I think to your point, perspective, realism, these are all extremely useful things in this conversation. Mason Windu says, everyone, please look at the Tiger trajectory over the last 7 to 8 years. Are you willing to follow that path? I think it's a disingenuous comparison because, one, you have COVID in the middle of that path, that I think probably screws up all teams who are in a rebuilding cost, but also the beginning of that 7 or 8 year window that you're talking about with the Tigers is a season where they won 40 games.
Mm-hmm.
They won 40 games one season. This is not the Detroit Tigers of 7 or 8 years ago, people. It's not a winning baseball team. Technically it is. It's not a championship level baseball team, but this is not the same comparison.
No.
At all, in any way, shape, or form.
Well, and I think that we can bear that out. Let's just look at the last decade. The Cardinals have had back-to-back single-digit picks in the draft. 7 last year, 5 this year. Before that, they hadn't had a single-digit pick in the draft. I think you had to go back to J.D. Drew in maybe 1997. In the last decade, the Tigers have had the 9th pick in the draft. They took a guy named Matt Manning. First overall, they took Casey Mize. 5th overall, they took Riley Green. First overall, they took Spencer Torkelson. 3rd overall, they took Jackson Jobe. And then a couple of years ago, 3rd overall, they took Max Clark. So in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years, they picked in the top 10 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. The Cardinals are not, and by the way, another time they were number 11. But 6 times in the last 11 years, they've picked in the top 10. Cardinals just don't do that. That's not who they are. And this year, they've got no chance because they're too good of getting a top 10 pick. The Tigers did something to get where they are now. And by the way, I do like the players. I think there is something to be said for the similarities. The way they're getting there is different because the Cardinals are drafting more effectively later in the draft, later in the first round. But you're not allowed to tank anymore. You can't tank anymore because, like the White Sox last year, they can't have a top 10 pick this year. The Cardinals, because they're picking 5th this year, they can't pick in the top 10 next year. Tanking is over as we knew it. You can't tank like Houston did, like the Cubs did, or the Tigers, and Baltimore did this too, get top 10 picks on a regular basis.
I also think if you read the great piece that Derek Gould did yesterday with Randy Flores, he points out how baseball still is not at the point of basketball and football where you can where you have an idea of what this guy can impact your team within a certain amount of time. It's still so nebulous in baseball. And yes, I think Astros proved it, the Cubs proved it, that you can suck for 10 years, get a bunch of picks, and you can use that to build. But I still think that sometimes people's mindset is a little bit broken. They still have a basketball or a football mindset. Like Jerry Franks here saying, when the season started, they were going to push for a runway, but they pushed that aside to try to win with a subpar team. It's because this isn't like the NFL, where if you win 4 or 5 games and you abandon your tanking status, you are rightly excoriated because you have to get a top 3 pick to get that quarterback. That's not what baseball is. It still isn't that way. And so as soon as they start winning games, I think it's completely reasonable that while you might not agree with it, you have to realize that from the perspective of people whose entire livelihood has been about winning baseball games, that when they got the opportunity to win more baseball games, they were going to take it instead of saying, yeah, let's tank and lose. Because to Andy's point, one, tanking doesn't do them anything. For the long arc, tanking doesn't do them as effective as any other team. So you have to think about this in a different perspective of not just the Cardinals, but how baseball works in the grand scheme of things. And everyone still thinks just getting the tournament. It's not the same as football or basketball.
No. Hey, I want you to know about the Fenton Bar and Grill. If you're looking for a great place this weekend to have a great dinner or lunch, or maybe if you get out on the golf course, be careful, hydrate, but then head on over to the air-conditioned Fenton Bar and Grill after your round and enjoy Well, the great happy hour they have. The happy hour at Fenton Bar and Grill is wonderful. And it'll be today from 2 to 5, tomorrow from noon to 4, Sunday from noon to 4. And they have 6 appetizers each for $6, mini tacos, the Fenton Bar and Grill fried dill pickles, breaded spicy cheese curds, the breaded portobello mushroom strips, pretzel bites, field green beans, and more. And of course, those are the trashed wings right there.
So good.
And they are absolutely spectacular. One of the things that I like, and I'm going to have next time I go to the Fenton Bar and Grill, is their steak sandwich, a sizzling 7-ounce strip served on a hoagie with lettuce, tomato, onion. It can be on garlic cheese bread if you want it to be, just for a little extra price. And it is absolutely spectacular. And with the really hot weather, and I guess we're going to have the hottest weather of the summer coming up, they have some wonderful salads over at the Fenton Bar and Grill. When you stop by, grab their Southwest salad with cheddar cheese, flame roasted corn with black beans, red and green peppers, diced tomatoes, and red onion. It is absolutely delicious. And I like the chicken Caesar over there with the red onion and the fresh, cool, crispy Romano, and the croutons and the Caesar dressing. Absolutely fantastic. You'll love the Fenton Bar and Grill. It's on Rudder Road, just 2 minutes away from the soccer park in Fenton. It's the home of the Trash Wings. Head there for lunch or dinner today. It's the Fenton Bar and Grill. And when you go, tell them Randy sent you.
There we go.
Where's Bernie?
Bernie is recording his video. He got started recording his video today a tad bit late, so he's going to join us here in just a few minutes.
Okay.
So Bernie, just a little bit past.
I want to touch on one thing, because there is this perception, which I consider kind of a misnomer, about the Houston Astros tanking to have their success in 2017.
Yes. Thank you.
They had a catcher that they traded for him, Brian McCann. This is a 2017 Detroit Houston Astros. Yuli Gurriel, Cuban free agent, played first base. Jose Altuve, a holdover from the Ed Wade administration, played second. He was an undrafted free agent. Correa and Bregman, first pick in the draft, second pick in the draft. Those two were definitely key parts. Japanese free agent Nori Aoki was their left fielder. George Springer, another holdover from the Ed Wade administration, played center. Josh Reddick was in right. He was a free agent that they signed. They brought in Beltran as a free agent on that team. Mike Fiers came over in a trade. Charlie Morton was a free agent. Dallas Keuchel had been developed, a holdover again from the Ed Wade administration. Brad Peacock trade. McCullers was a pick, and then Colin McHugh.
But the big thing is that they screwed up back-to-back first overall pitchers.
Unbelievable.
Mark Apel and Brady Aiken didn't do anything for them, and that was three. That was, by the way, that was 3 straight number 1 overall picks for the Astros, and then a second overall pick the year after that.
And that second overall pick, Bregman,
Correa and Bregman are the first and fourth of that run.
And that Bregman was a pick that was awarded to them because they couldn't sign Appel, right?
Yep, exactly. And so the fact that they kind of swung and missed, ironically enough, on 2 pitchers does kind of accentuate your point that even if you do tank, it's not always the path to building the team, especially in baseball, and especially still nowadays, and especially with the fact that you can't ever get that run of top picks like the Astros had.
Yeah. Skywalker 1982. DeWitt is way better than the Bushes were. I will say that the DeWitt ownership since 96 has been better than the Anheuser-Busch ownership from 1989 when Gussie Busch died to 1995 when they sold the team. But the Gussie Busch ownership was awesome. He was very competitive. He wanted to win. He allowed Whitey to do whatever he wanted to do. When Whitey said, "Here's what you need to do," Mr. Busch said, "Well, you do what you need to do." And he said, "Well, I need to be the general manager." And Mr. Busch said, "Okay." And so he let Whitey be the general manager and put together a team that went to the World Series 3 times in the 80s. Hold on. Oh, youngsters need to learn how to win, not how to tank. And that's what the Cardinals are looking at now. It's Ali Marmol is going in there every day with the idea that he wants to win games. The players are going in there every day with the idea that they want to win games. And the players are talented. Are they polished baseball players yet? No. This is where the problem lies with the Cardinals. They've had good athletes. We've seen good athletes go and become good players elsewhere, haven't we? Whether it was a Rosarena or whether it was Adolis Garcia or whether it was Alcantara and Gallen. We've seen a lot of guys walk out the door and become better players. And the Cardinals now are in a position where they still do a great job of bringing talent into the organization. And now they're working harder and spending more at developing those young players.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bernie again will be joining us here in just a couple of minutes. And before he does, though, I do want to jump down to some notes I took from the incredible piece that Derek Gould did his interview with Randy Flores. Because, by the way, we're going to be doing a shorter show today, pretty much right after Bernie. We wrap up the Bernie interview. That will be the end of the show.
You got a doctor's appointment.
So while we have a little bit of free time here, I did want to point out one of the most important, what I think, quotes from that great piece. And check out stltoday.com. Derek Gould has tweeted out the link a couple times, so you can grab that off his X as well. One of the quotes here from Randy Flores, there's two. I'll read both of them. One of them was when he was asked about how much proximity to the majors, essentially how quickly they think they could hit the majors, matters. And here was his quote: "We're trying as best as possible to evaluate the player's career, which is impossible, but we're trying to do so. This is a game of longevity, and so you try to measure and attempt to evaluate the chance of this player having a successful career. That leads it. I think anytime you lean too far away on proximity, you miss out on chances like Jackson Holiday or other high school picks who have excelled, including some of our own." But he says it's not the thing that leads the discussion. And then later on, they point out that a lot of pitching is development. They go on talking about how arm angles change, like the pitches you use change, how you use those pitches changes. But hitting a baseball is so difficult that I think it is less likely to have a long-term tremendous hits the further away you get from the top of the draft.
And that makes sense.
And it makes sense. And that also backs up what the Cubs did in their rebuild. Because unlike the Astros, the Cubs really never went high pitching. They said we're going to get bat after bat after bat after bat after bat, and then we'll figure out the pitching in free agency and trades from the major league level. And it worked out. That's how they won a World Series. They had a lineup based around a lot of their own players and a pitching group that was almost entirely made out of everybody else's players. So that makes sense. And as somebody who's been pushing for one of the three left-handed pitchers, reading that quote though immediately does make me think that an Eli Willits might be even more likely than I thought.
Yeah, especially because of his description in talking about a kid like Jackson Holiday and Willits, Oklahoma high school player, and you can develop him yourself. And the Cardinals, they know the new rules, and they know that they aren't going to get many bites at the apple in terms of top 10 picks. They'll either be too good because their organization is better than most organizations in terms of just winning. We've seen that. But the other part of it is because of the rules. If you try to lose, you're not going to be rewarded like you were in the past. But the big thing is the high pick. The Cardinals have shown that they can get pitchers out of later rounds and later picks, but they haven't shown that they can develop a superstar hitter, even with a first-round pick like Walker, who is 20th. They need at some point to start developing these young hitters that they have to.
And listen, there's some people who don't think that Randy Flores is doing a good job. I think you're insane. They don't think that Mo's done a good job over the years. They don't think the Cardinals have done a good job developing their draft picks. The bottom line, and Mason Windu says it here, that they've had more players leave the organization and not do well than we've seen leave and actually do well. To that point, if you look at the amount of WAR that your drafted players have produced for your franchise in the last 20 years, the Cardinals sit second in Major League Baseball. Second in Major League Baseball. So for everyone who says all this talent they draft doesn't win with the Cardinals, doesn't produce with the Cardinals, and only produces with everyone else, every single number tells you that over the last 20 years, you're entirely incorrect.
Yeah, and there were several years, just in the last 5, where in Major League Baseball, there were more players that were developed by the Cardinal organization than any other organization in baseball. So, there are players that leave here and don't do well also, no doubt about it. We can name a few, right? But the fact of the matter is, if you look around at the number of good players that the Cardinals have had bouncing around Major League Baseball over the last 5 years, if you count them up, I would guess there's probably more good Cardinal players, former Cardinal farmhands, around Major League Baseball than any other franchise.
Number one is the Astros, which not a surprise. Shouldn't surprise you considering all the first round picks we just rattled off the top of their head. The difference there is that, again, they're doing it with top 5 picks, and also relative to the amount of players who have hit the Major League level. Cardinals in the last 10 years have had 32 drafted players hit Major League levels. The Astros have had 51. And this isn't WAR per player. This is total WAR. And the Astros are at like 110 and the Cardinals at 98. So if you think about WAR per player, the Cardinals are smoking the Astros out of the water.
How about that? I wonder what's going on, by the way, with the Atlanta Braves. They just, and last year, remember, they had a struggling offensive year, but man, they just are not getting the kind of offense that they expected. Now, Olsen is fine at 849 OPS, but Ozzie Albies is way down 612. Nick Allen, their shortstop, only has a 585 OPS. Riley is actually down this year. He's still having a good year, 14 homers, 47 RBIs, 763, but you expect Riley to be an 820 OPS guy. And then Verdugo, they get him to play the outfield. He's only got a 585. Michael Harris has been a major disappointment with a 539 OPS. Ronald Acuna Jr. is back, and he's playing Ronald Acuna baseball. And then Ozuna has fallen off. His OPS is only at 748, although he has 12 homers and 41 RBIs. The biggest thing for them, though, Matthew, beyond the fact that they aren't hitting, is that they didn't replace their pitchers. And at this point, their pitching is what's really dragging them down. And you look at their rotation right now. Grant Holmes goes tonight. Sale is fine. Bryce Elder has a 5.65 ERA. Strider's still not back. He's 3-7. And then AJ Smith-Scheuer, I believe, just got hurt. So they've got some injury issues and pitching issues and offensive issues, which I didn't expect. And by the way, I also expected them with the stadium and with the revenue that Atlanta has, with what they generate. The fact that they don't have Max Fried on their team is really bad for them.
Yeah, and Braves fans are rightfully pretty teed off about that one, and they should be. I still think they're mad about Freddie.
Yeah, they are.
I think they're still pissy about Freddie. Obviously, Matt Olson kind of falling off a cliff.
51 home runs a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think Matt Olson not falling off a cliff, but Matt Olson not reaching the growth linearly that they expected from him has also probably been a little bit problematic and added to the Freddie Freddie reactions. Excuse me. By the way, our Houston Astros expert Wilson did want me to clarify. They got the second pick for Bregman because they didn't sign Aiken. They also had issues signing Appel. Yeah. So it's insane that they couldn't get, not that those guys didn't work out. They couldn't get them signed. But they got the number 2 pick because of that one, which is the fact that you screwed up 2 number 1 overall picks is objectively hilarious to me. And I enjoyed laughing at the Astros as it was happening. Of course, then everything would then happen after that.
And by the way, one other clarification, the Astros, for all of those struggles that we talked about, they're still third in baseball at 4.03 runs a game, but you don't expect them to have an earned run average of 4.02, which is down towards the middle of the pack. And at the end of the day, the record is a dozen games under 100. I wonder if, I'll tell you what, if you were going to give me one team to bounce back in the second half, it would be the Braves, but I don't know if they have it. All right, Bernie Miklasz is with us now, our friend here at STL Sports Central, friend in life. Bernie, good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing good, and I apologize for being late, but I was a hard-working boy getting my daily video done for STL Sports Central. I raised some hell about the president of baseball operations. As I know I never do that, but anyway.
No. By the way, I'm guessing that he will probably turn the reins over to Chaim Bloom in August or early September. That would be my guess.
He did an interview on MLB Network a couple months ago, a couple months ago, and he all but said as much. And so I think that would be good. I personally wish he would have done something dramatic by saying, we've had a lot of talk. Chaim Bloom's up to speed on this or that, and I think he should make the decisions on the trade deadline. And I'm going to bow out gracefully. I think that people would really have appreciated and respected John Mozeliak for doing that, but instead, he obviously seems determined to hold on to power for as long as he can. And, that's kind of getting in the way of some stuff. They have a better chance to win if Michael McGreevy's in the rotation than Eric Fedde. And Mo blew his chance to trade Fedde last winter when he had much higher value. But he's going to, and so even though Mo was telling reporters last week in a Wrigley Field, like, oh, we like McGreevy a lot, but we don't have a spot for him. Well, you don't have a spot for him, Mo, because you won't give him a spot. You're the one blocking him from getting a spot. But it's funny because yesterday, as you guys know, Marmo, because he was the manager every day does like 3 or 4 different media sessions before a game. And so he speaks for the franchise. But because he announced that Fedde would start Saturday and McGreevy was going to stay locked down in Memphis. Social media, everyone's ripping, they're blasting Marmol. Oh, see, he's Mo's puppet. He's not a puppet. He has said some stuff on KMOX with us, in effect, that kind of taking shots at Mo. I mean, Ollie Marmol wants McGreevy here more than the fans who want McGreevy here. But I don't know why people understand this. The president of baseball operations makes the decisions on the roster. Like, in other words, Marmol can't promote McGreevy. Only John Mozeliak can promote McGreevy. So why is it Marmol's fault? I'm confused. But then again, we live in a strange time, and social media has given a lot of dumb people an outlet. So anyway.
it is a little inexcusable because what I'm taking is that you're seeing this as maybe ego isn't the right word, but the idea that Mozeliak wants to close the loop on the Fedde deal with something to show for it, right. And therefore he's being stubborn in this decision that we have to get some kind of value and start him 1 or 2 times before the deadline.
Well, that's exactly right. And, obviously, and some people, reluctantly agree to this. I really don't, but Mo thinks that he can improve. The only way to improve Fedde's trade value is to have Fedde pitch instead of sitting in the bullpen. But let me ask you a question. He makes a couple of starts before July 31st, and he does well. He's okay. In other words, he's not giving up like 7 runs a game. How much, what does John Mozeliak expect to get for him exactly? The time to get a nice package of something was last winter, and Mo bypassed the opportunity and gambled that he could get a lot more for him at the trade deadline. And that's simply not going to happen. Even if he gets something, his gamble that he can get more for him in July than he could have gotten for him at the time last winter is simply not going to pan out.
And the best way to provide, and I'm like you, Bernie, I can't imagine that the Cardinals would expect to get anything of value out of a guy like Tommy Edman, out of a guy like Eric Fedde. But here's the thing. When you have a situation like they have now, the best way to build a market is to DFA him and have other teams call you and say, okay, we know you have to trade him. And you say, okay, well, I got 3 teams that are interested in trading for him. What's your best offer? That's the way and you could do that today. The best way to enhance the market value of Eric Fedde is to DFA him and have people call because they know you have to trade him.
Randy Karraker, that is why you're a smart man. I wish I would have talked to you about that before I did my video, because I would have thrown that in there. You're right. That's a great point. And listen, look, tip of the cap to Miles Michaelis. He pitched very well last night. But that doesn't mean Fedde will. And anyway, just because Michaelis made one good start after being bad for so long, I mean, what do we want to do here? We don't have a party. I don't, so what I don't understand about Michaelis, like the idea, Mo thinks they can do some things with Fedde to make him better. They've tried everything to make him better, but he's lost his confidence, number one, and left-handed hitters just annihilate him. And managers know that, and the Braves are loaded up with left-handed hitters. But anyway,
Bernie, let me throw one other point out for you too. When Fedde came here right around this time last year, he came to the administration, the coaching staff. He said, "Look, I know you guys got me, but I'm gassed. I got nothing left in the tank." And I'm sure that Fedde is in the exact same spot this year, right? He looks like he's gassed.
Yeah, he does. So, if I don't know. If Fedde pitches decently, it still doesn't mean Mo was right or he's validated, because the time to trade him was last winter. And even then, heck, we may even overestimate what he could have gotten for him then. I don't know that a lot of people were convinced that he was as good as he appeared to be when he pitched for the White Sox last season. But the point is, Mo has had like two things about the season. Number one, it's the runway season. We want to give our youngsters, full opportunity to secure themselves in the major leagues. It's the year of the runway. And then the second thing he said is like when people thought, okay, well, that means they're sort of, taking a pass on the season. They're not They're not going to be able to win. And he got defiant about that and said, oh, no, we think we can win. Well, Michael McGreevy checks both of those boxes. He's a runway guy. And at this point right now, he gives you a better option than Fedde for the challenge of winning games. Fedde this year, the Cardinals have lost 13 out of his 18 starts, and they've lost 8 out of his last 10 starts. McGreevy gives you a better chance to win. So McGreevy, even though he qualified in both boxes, runway guy to give you a chance to win, Mozeliak's still blocking him. I mean,
makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. And at this point, you try to think of reasons, right? You try to think of the clock, the time served clock, but that doesn't apply anymore.
No.
And Matthew used the word ego, and Bernie, I think the downfall of the organization, the word that I use is arrogance, the smartest guy in the room syndrome.
Yep.
And they thought that they were smarter than other people. And they didn't bring anybody in from the outside like they finally did when they brought in Chaim Bloom. And I think that arrogance is why the Cardinals wound up in the position that they were in.
You and I are simpatico. We're the exact same wavelength because the Cardinals have been taken down, in effect, by the smartest men in the room complex. It applies to Bill DeWitt Jr. It certainly applies to Mo. Everybody likes to blame all these managers for everything. They're not the ones that are supervising the direction of the Cardinals. And so the Cardinals won so much, they just concluded, well, we're really, really smart. And, you know, we have a model that works. I mean, we're superior. And in their complacency and arrogance, they let the model get outdated and basically fall apart. And since the start in the last 10 seasons going into this one, you know, they've won 5 postseason games, and they haven't won a postseason game since 2019. And despite, frankly, that the way they set this season up, it was almost incoherent. And despite all these puzzles and this island of misfit toys that Marmol and the coaches have to work with, I mean, somehow they're 5 or 6 games over 500, which they really shouldn't be, if you ask me, because it's kind of a jumbled mess about, like, in other words, if you're the manager, it's like, well, what's the main priority here? And there isn't one priority. Mo wants both things: runway, winning. Well, which one comes first on a daily basis? How can you go all out to win that each game when you have to go with runway guys? Or how do you manage to try to win each game when the guy who's your boss will not bring up a starting pitcher who is better than Eric Fedde? And it's just a straight, listen, I don't care if it was Ali Marmol managing the team, or you can name a lot of different people. It's nothing to do about Marmol. I'm saying this job for any manager that would be in this set of circumstances is just crazy. And I think the guy, no manager is perfect. Ali and I talk, and I mean, Ali and I even get into it a lot about some of the things he does. I mean, I'm no Ali Marmol apologist, but I also try to be fair. And this situation he is in is just kind of nuts, you know, because there's no clear priority or objective. I don't know, man.
And that seems problematic too, because when you're having a changing of the guard in the front office, it seems like you'd want there to be some kind of transition instead of just this hard difference between this is Mozeliak's mindset, this is Bloom's mindset. And to your point, to open up the interview, talking about does Bloom kind of start taking over in August and September and things like that, that would be the only logical thing left, because if they don't let it happen, then that hard stop between the two things, I have a feeling is going to be jarring for the people actually inside the organization.
Yeah, and maybe the idea is that, you know, Chaim Bloom can get a jump on, you know, hiring people directly for the front office, or at least being physically inside the front office operation, sitting there every day rather than keeping a distance. And he can make a final determination about who's going to stay and who's going to go. And that can help make it a smoother transfer. There'll be less work to do when he's formally in charge and no one, you know, at the top, and there's no question that he's the guy now. maybe he will have gotten a head start in trying to determine who's going to be in the front office. I don't know, but it's been an awkward situation all along. And the one thing I look forward to with Chaim Bloom, he's a really, really smart guy. And the other thing, everybody who knows Chaim Bloom will tell you this, and I've talked to a lot of people that know him well personally. When we talk about Mo's arrogance and ego, and clearly that has been a huge issue, people tell me Chaim Bloom does not have an ego. It's not about him. He is relentless in his desire to build a great baseball team and to make sure you build a great player development system. And that's all he cares about. He's not worried about credit. He's not, if he makes a mistake, he's not going to overreact to the mistake by then making another mistake because he wants to prove to everybody he was right. He's not one of those guys. So they're going to be in good hands. And Chaim Bloom's kind of low key. And I hope Cardinals fans understand that, but he's low key in a way that will be a great refreshing change for the way the Cardinals are being run.
And I think now, I think that we can all agree that things are very businesslike, very staid. And it's been that way from the top down for a long time. Chaim Bloom fell in love with baseball watching the '93 Phillies, right? with
right.
Lady Dykstra and Darren Dalton and Dave Hollins and Mitch Williams. That was a really fun team. And then he worked with Joe Madden at the beginning of his career, obviously. So he understands the concept and importance. Not that it's something that you can't win without, because we saw with Tony La Russa's teams, they were driven. But in this day and age, the way players are, I think they want to have fun, and I think Chaim understands that aspect of it.
Well, he does, and he's a really interesting guy. And the Cardinals are also getting him in at a good time, and Chaim Bloom went about this the right way because he wanted to study things rather than just jump right into the pool. And as much as there was a great appeal to maybe have him take over and start running things at the start of 2025, the more I thought about it, the more it makes sense. First of all, they absolutely had to do something to renovate that player development and minor league system because it had fallen into a terrible state of disrepair and neglect. And that was a big time job because Chaim Bloom's going to be all about player development, because player development is the most important thing a team can do unless they're spending $300 million or something on payroll. And even some of those teams still can't get it right. The Cardinals, it's essential for them to have a thriving player development program. And so he wanted to get his people in place to do that. And it took time to study that and recruit people. And by all indications, they have a wonderful staff down there, and they made great progress. And they're catching up with the technology and the facilities and all the things that have been lacking. And the other thing that Chaim Bloom brings to this job that I think is a good thing, that's why now I'm going to be the one that sounds arrogant. Sorry. That's why I laugh at these people that talk about, well, he got fired in Boston. he got fired in Boston. And you homers in the St. Louis media, you never talk about how he got fired in Boston, right? Is that supposed to be a gotcha? He was hired by John Henry because John Henry said, what you people have done in Tampa Bay is a miracle. You come up with much better rosters than people that are spending a lot more money. And, you're like, one year you won 96 games and the Yankees were barely holding on to win the division. We have a terrible farm system. We don't draft well. Your number one priority is to do that. We want you to do that. Oh my gosh, we're grateful because you can do that. We know this. Well, Chaim Bloom did that. I mean, when he took over, they had like the 28th ranked farm system. And when he got fired, like the year after that, but they're still his farm system, they were in the top 5. This is a matter of like a couple years. And the other thing, and my friend Dane Perry, CBS Sports, but also his Birdie Work blog wrote, Chaim Bloom, John Henry brings Chaim Bloom in, right, to make him the chief baseball officer, whatever the title is. And this is where Chaim Bloom probably made a mistake. Chaim Bloom did not have the freedom or the privilege of bringing in his own people. He was surrounded by the guys that were already there screwing things up. Yep. Mm-hmm. And these guys are like, whoa, who's this Ivy League hotshot? Oh, he's going to teach us about baseball, is he? Let's bow down to the Ivy League boy,
But Bernie, let's make the point also that it wasn't just any group. It was a group of really old school Dave Dombrowski hires.
Right.
And Henry wanted to go from Dombrowski, who couldn't care less about a farm system or budget. And they pretty much wanted to do a 180, right?
Yeah.
Because they wanted to go farm system and budget. And that's why they forced him to trade Mookie Betts.
There's no doubt about it. They had a contract negotiation with Betts. The Red Sox made a good offer, but it wasn't the offer that Betts and his agent knew that they would get. And then John Henry, that's it, trade him. And the word got out that Chaim Bloom he was ordered to trade Mookie Betts. So what do you think that did to Mookie Betts' trade value? So he undermined his own general manager. And the other thing, getting back to your point about he comes in and takes over, but he's surrounded by all these dinosaurs who hate the way that the Tampa Bay Rays do their thing, and they're brilliant. And look at them now this year, for example. But they resented it because he's not an old school, spit in the tobacco cup guy like they are. And so they undermined him, man. They didn't give him support. They were stabbing him in the back the whole time. And it was actually merciful for Chaim Bloom when John Henry, who, by the way, changed his mind every 15 minutes about what he wanted him to do. Well, we're not winning. Well, you said I had to rebuild the farms. No. We need to win now. Make some stupid trades, that kind of thing. Chaim Bloom never knew exactly what the boss wanted him to do. And he's having daggers stuck in his back by the people that were already there. That's why Chaim Bloom was really picky about his next job. He did not want that to happen in his next stop. And that's why I think him getting the lay of the land, basically a 2-year education, was a really good thing, because he can set this thing up the way he needs to set it up. And to Bill DeWitt's credit, Bill DeWitt said, absolutely, you do what you want. Because I think, frankly, Bill DeWitt's embarrassed by the way things have gone, even though he's been a part of it. At least it was better late than never. At least he has recognized they have to change their entire model. But he didn't want to just hire Chaim Bloom. He wanted to do it the right way. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. Yep.
And I don't know if I ever really convinced Chaim of what I thought and still think. He might have fake bought in, but Bernie, here's the way I looked at it. His job this year is not unlike what Buck Showalter was doing when he started the Arizona Diamondbacks. Yep. Showalter went in there was no team, and he built the system. He hired the employees. He got all the minor league players. And then in 1998, he was also given a roster. They had an expansion draft. Not that the Cardinals are as bad as an expansion team, but Chaim had the opportunity to build a foundation, and now he's going to get to the top of the pyramid when he takes over next year, and he's going to have a great foundation, I think, in place as he gets a group of major league players to have molded.
It's well said. And you're right about Buck Showalter. That year, after he had been hired and basically had a year to put everything together, he spent a lot of time in St. Louis. He was in Tony La Russa's office all the time, and he also had meetings with Walt Jocketty, and it was a little awkward because the Diamondbacks are a National League team. But, La Russa and Jocketty showed him the professional courtesy because they liked them, and, and just kind of explained the way they tried to do things, and, and took his questions and tried to help him without giving away, the secrets or whatever. But Buck Showalter did a lot of valuable due diligence. And so that's a really good parallel. I had never thought about that. Good job.
One more thing, and we only have like 3 or 4 minutes left here. I have to get out early, but I was telling Matthew and everybody that's tuned in about our days at the walkie-talkie at 1380. What's your strongest memory of our show at 1380?
Not the signal.
My strongest memory was that you would come into work in the morning, and you never knew what you would find in there. You would never know who you would find in there. You would walk in, and there would just be some guy roaming the hallways. And
this was at Delmar and Union. And Union is where the studio was.
Just a couple random people, roaming the hallways. And some days you'd come in, and there'd be somebody sleeping on the couch, who just sort of came in off the street.
Yeah,
and
literally.
they were very pleasant, very cordial. I mean, I never felt any kind of danger. And the other thing is, you know, I got to rip Dave Green for this just to do it because I love to tease him. You know, you go to 1380 in that building on Delmar, and there's like boxes and junk and garbage all over the place. And there was just like this one little teensy studio, and the rest of it was nothing but boxes and junk strewn all over the place, right?
Yeah.
So no, that was really my memory. It's just because it was an adventure. There was also someone who was cooking in that building a lot, and I think when I say cooking, I am referring to food. You know, you would walk in there in the morning, and it had just without fail that like the most interesting scent, right?
Yeah, it did. It did.
And I always wondered, like, well, what are they preparing? Whoever it is, whatever office they were in, what in the world are they preparing? And I was almost afraid to find out, so I never got too curious.
Yeah,
So,
no, it was it was a good time. It was probably not the best points of our careers, but it was a fun time.
well, yeah, you know, and it gave us, even though we didn't directly work together there. Well, at first we didn't, but then we did. I'm trying to remember.
On the landing, yeah, we didn't work together until we were on the landing.
In the landing, that's it. It gave me a chance to work with you again, which I enjoyed, and it was kind of fun. It's always fun being the underdog, and I think I actually think that was a big part of my appeal to come join you and everyone else here at STL Sports Central, because you kind of like being that underdog. You're starting something new. You're bringing a totally different thing to the market, and at first people are like, "Well, what is that?" And I don't blame them, by the way. You know, well, what is that? You know, and then we're about to hit what is it? We're about to hit a million.
Yeah, one of your videos the other day is going to hit 1 million views. That's awesome.
You know, so no, I don't think it's me. I think it's like everybody. Like the numbers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger each week. You know, because people are recognizing. Wait a minute, the Blues play, City plays, the Cardinals play, Mizzou plays, SLU plays. You mean there's a live post game streaming show after every? Yeah, there is.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Anyway, you said we got to go, so we'll go. So, and I'm sorry for being late.
No, you're the best. Have a great weekend,
right,
and we will talk to you next week.
Love you, man. See you, Rock.
Right. Love you.
See you later, Bernie. Thank you so much, sir.
That is Bernie. Great work as always. Don't forget, we are presented by DraftKings, and we're into the baseball season. Here's what I want you to do this weekend. Sign up for DraftKings. Just download DraftKings Pick 6. It's the all-new way to play daily fantasy sports. Every customer who plays $5 gets $50 in bonus picks, 10 extra picks to keep the action going all week long. Easy to start, fun to follow, and gives you a whole new way to stay connected to the game. Download the Pick 6 app today and use that promo code that you see right there, STL Sports, when you sign up. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Matthew Rocchio, have a great weekend.
You as well, Randy Karraker.
Thank you very much for being a part of the show. You have a great weekend too. We will see you Monday morning at 10:02. Don't forget, pre and post game for every Cardinal game this weekend. Post game on Sunday night after St. Louis City and Portland. Big one for City SC, and I think Edward Leuven's going to be back, so that'll be fun. So we'll see you on all of those platforms here at STL Sports Central, and I will see you with the Randy Karraker Show on Monday morning. Have a great weekend.